Gimel Amud Aleph. Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph, the two dots, right before the wider lines, not the widest lines, the wider lines.
Tana Reb Chia.
Tana Reb Chia. So in the Mishnah we had a statement, which the Gemarrah then corrected, and the statement was that when you want to teach Ma'aseh Al-Kava, which is in Yecheskel, the vision that he saw, you should not teach it to anyone. However, if there is someone that is a Talmud Chacham, means he learned a lot, and maybe Midaito he understands on his own, you can teach him. Reb Chia and subsequently the veshalom and Rab Ami, they're going to add conditions to this person. So they're either going to add conditions to this Talmud Chacham, or they're going to add conditions to the concept of who can you and can you not teach. The Mishnah said you can't teach to anyone unless it's Talmud Chacham and maybe Medaita. Comes Reb Chia and says, Tana Reb Chia, Aval, but you can't teach to everyone, but you can only teach a Talmud Chacham that understands on his own. But for everyone else, Moislin and Rosh Pakim, you can give over outlines, headlines, just subject lines of what it says there. And if you you can learn himself, try to figure it out himself.
Bullet points.
So that's what Reb Chia says. Now, before we go weiter with the veshalom, if we look in where all Chassidim, so we learn the Rambam. If you look on the Ein Mishpat, top left corner, the Ein Mishpat right here, what it says is Maimon, the Rambam, the Aleph. This is the B'chia. The B'chia has a small Aleph, right? Abel Moisen has a small Aleph. What is it? So the Ein Mishpat says Maimon Perek Beis Milchas Yisoda Torah, Halachid Beis, in Perek Beis, Halachid Beis of Hilchas Yisoda Torah, and in Perek Dalet Sham, Halachid Aleph. The Rambam brings this down that he can give Rosh Pakim. So if you look at the Rambam, which is what I printed out, so this is Perek, end of Perek Beis, and in the beginning of the Perek, the Rambam just talks about Yisoda Torah, speaks about the main things, speaks about the Malachim, speaks about things that were created, things that we don't see. And at the end of this two plakim, the Rambam writes like this: the things that we mention in these two chapters, they are like a dot of water, a drop of water in the ocean. So it's almost nothing. In order to really explain what goes on in these two, what the Rambam mentioned in very short words in two chapters, in order to really explain it, there's a lot more than you need. And explaining all the main points that are brought down in these two chapters, that's what's called Ma'aseh Al-Kava. That's what we're discussing here. So why isn't the Rambam going into details and explaining? Why is the Rambam only giving us a drop in the ocean? This comes the next halacha. Because Chacham said that you should teach these things only to one-on-one. And this one-on-one is only as a condition that the person that this teacher is teaching to is a wise man. He acquired Torah, and maybe he understands things on his own. And after that happens, this person, to this person, you can only teach outlines, headlines, subject lines, not the main thing. You only let him know a little bit of the things. Who maybe Midaito understands on his own. And he knows, he will understand the full thing, the Amka and the depth of it. How deep are we talking about? The very deep concepts, very, very deep. That's the word, and not every mind can handle these inyanim. Shlomo Melech mentions Kvasim lilvoshecha. Sheep is your garment. Out of sheep you make wool. Out of wool you make garments. So the Chacham explained, Kachum Chacham beferish mashal zeh. Mishle is all parables. So what's the parable of Kvasim lilvoshecha, that the kvasim, that sheep is your garments? So the Chacham explained, Dvarim shem kivshoyne shalom, the change from a sin to a shin, instead of kvasim, which is a sheep. Kvashim means something that's hidden. Kavush, something you put under, and let it soak. It's surrounded by water or something. So dvarim shem kivshoyne shalom, the things that are hidden of the world, or hidden subjects of the world, yilul v'shecha, should be under your garments. K'loimar l'chol levatcha, for yourself. Al tilush esmaram, do not teach it in public. V'aleim amam, that's what it says in another parable in Mishle. Yilul l'chol levatcha, vein l'zon midchol, should be for yourself and not for foreigners. V'aleim amam shir b'shel melech, again said, dvash v'cholav tachad l'shoynech, honey and milk should be under your tongue, should not be above your tongue. Things that are so sweet and so good should not be above your tongue, meaning don't talk about them. Should be under your tongue, that you don't talk about them. Should be under your tongue. So the Rambam basically says that the Chacham, the one that understands on his own and is a Talmid Chacham, that means you learned a lot, to him we only give outlines. Okay? To him we give outlines. So this, what the Mishnah is saying, that you can only teach someone as a Talmid Chacham that understands maybe Midaitoi. What do you teach him? You don't teach him the whole Ma'aseh Merkava. You don't teach him the whole thing. You just give him subject, outlines, and then he'll have to work on his own to reach the depths. From this Gemarrah, which basically points to this Rambam, it says no. To a Talmid Chacham that maybe Midaitoi, you teach him everything. To the average person, to him, because we don't know where he's going to take it, so teach him only outlines, and he will, you have to rely on himself. So how does the Gemarrah, how does the English point this Gemarrah to the Rambam? It doesn't make sense. According to the Gemarrah, it's very different than the Rambam. So the Rambam went along with Rabbeinu Chananel. If you look at Rabbeinu Chananel, on the side here, it says, if it loy b'makav b'yachid, it's a little above what we're holding, loy b'makav b'yachid, Tani, we learned, Rabchia learned, he skips the word Avo, he writes, Moisin l'yachid l'ashapakim, this yachid that we're talking about, to him, we only give l'ashapakim, Pirush, Poiskim l'rosh advarav, v'hu maybe medaiti, he gives him the outlines and he understands himself. So the Rambam apparently had this gersa of Rabbeinu Chananel, that deletes the word Avo, deletes the word but, and that changes everything. According to this, the Rabchia says, no, you cannot teach everyone. You can only teach what the Mishnah said. I'm not arguing with the Mishnah. The Mishnah said you can only teach a Talmid Chacham Mevim Daitoi. And to such a person, you can only give Lashapa. Okay, so whether it's goes like the Rambam, that this Talmid Chacham you can only teach outlines, or whether it goes according to what the Gemarrah writes here, that Avo Meis Lashapa, that yes, to a Talmid Chacham you can teach a lot, but to someone that's not a Talmid Chacham, give him only outlets and see where it takes it. Let's go back to the Gemarrah. On this, Isaiah has an opinion also. Abchia was at the end of the Tanoim. He was in a period between the Tanoim and Elohim, at the end of the Tanoim. So Abchia can add to the Mishnah. Isaiah cannot argue. So Isaiah only adds to what the Abchia is saying. Amar Isaiah, Ein mois rashapakim el la'av bezdin. These rashapakim, these outlines, you can only give to someone that is worthy of being an Av Bezdin. An Av Bezdin, if he's the head judge, he has to have a knowledge in all areas of Torah. So we're talking about someone that's very wise, just like the Mishnah says a Chacham. He doesn't actually have to be an Av Bezdin, but he has to be very wise. But he adds another T'nai, or in addition, he could also be taught to someone. Whoever that his heart is anxious inside him, meaning that he's Shemaim, that he's fearful of the Eibishter, such a person you can also teach. Why? Because such a person is not going to take it in the wrong way. He's not going to take it and do something wrong with this knowledge. A guy that is a fearful person, he has a fear of Hashem, he can teach him as well. So the Abzeda basically adds, according to this opinion, the Abzeda adds that in addition to a Chacham, in addition to a regular guy that you can teach You can also teach someone that's an Av Bezdin, which is similar to a Chacham, and you can also teach someone that is a Shemaim, that is a fearful, that has a fear of heaven. Yg.א-י, some other people say no, that this Talmud Chacham that the Mishnah says that he should be like an Av Bezdin, Vehu shali b'doi b'kibay. This person, not Stam, he also has to have a Shemaim. Don't teach it just a Talmud Chacham that is very wise. This Talmud Chacham also have to have Yira Shemaim, because otherwise he can Chas V'Shalom take it in the wrong way. They say the reason why you're not supposed to teach Ma'aseh Melkava to someone, the worry was that the Ma'aseh Melkava and the Psukim, if you read them and try to understand them, it almost humanizes the Eibishter. And it gives the Eibishter human form, which is limited. And they're worried that if you learn this, you may actually start thinking that of the Eibishter Chas V'Shalom as a certain limited type of form. Taka very high and it's lofty and it's fire and all these different things, and it's light, but it's still a human form. And therefore, they didn't want to teach this, the Ma'aseh Melkava, the two last Pesukim of Ma'aseh Melkava, as we will see. Amar Abami added, in general, hidden things of the Torah, do not give to anyone unless he has these 5 qualities. Sal Chamishim, he has to be a minister of 50. The Gemara doesn't exactly explain what he means with this, but we'll see. When a supanim, he has to find favor by many people, so he's a very pleasant guy. V'yoyetz, he's smart, he can give advice. V'chocham chaloshim, to explain, is someone that's very cunning. He's cunningly smart. And v'oin lachash, yeah, but it's very like. And v'oin lachash, again, also someone that understands the hidden things. Either it means someone understands the lechoshes, the things that are said quietly, or some say that he's very charming. Anyways, he has to have an additional 5 qualities.
It's almost like Chassidus. Kabbalah Chassidus.
To do these things.
No, there was a time when people weren't allowed to learn Chassidus. It wasn't for everyone.
Yeah.
It wasn't for men, women, and children.
We'll see a Mashah.
It wasn't before not.
Very interesting mention. We'll see a Mashah in a moment. V'amar Abami said, do not give over divrei Torah, words of Torah to a goy. Shenema to an Andrew. Shenema, because the pasuk says, what does the pasuk say? Magidvav liYaakov. He says, the Eibishter says his words, Torah, to Yaakov, to the Yidden, u'mishpatav leYisrael, and his laws to the Yidden. And what does the pasuk say afterwards? Le'asechem l'chol goy, u'mishpatim ba'adam. He did not give the Torah to the goyim, to the non-Jews. U'mishpatim, and the laws, ba'adam, he didn't tell. He didn't let them know. And Tosfos already asks, and the Maharsh talks about it. So there's Sheva Mitzvah B'Noach. Can you not teach that as well? You could teach Sheva Mitzvah B'Noach. So basically, they're saying that we're talking about something beyond that. The Maharsh explains we're talking about the reasoning behind the mitzvahs. You can't teach a guy the reasoning behind the mitzvahs. Even the Sheva Mitzvah B'Noach, you're not supposed to teach him the reasoning behind the mitzvahs. In any case, not supposed to give that to a guy. Amar le Rabbi Yochanan le Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Yochanan turned to his student Rabbi Lazar and told him, come, I'm going to teach you Ma'aseh Melkava. I'm going to teach you Ma'aseh Melkava. Right? One-on-one is allowed to. Rabbi Lazar obviously was Talmud Chacham. Amar le, so Rabbi Lazar turned to Rabbi Yochanan and said, Lo kashoy, I'm not old enough. Meaning I don't feel I don't have the Shemaim yet that is attained as a person gets older. Okay, so let it go. Kikash, when Rabbi Elazar got old and he was maybe ready to learn, Noch nafshe Rabbi Yochanan passed away already. So then Rabbi Yochanan's other Talmud, Rabbi Asi, turned to Rabbi Elazar. Amar Rabbi Asi, come, Tov v'agamrich Ma'aseh Melkava, I'll come, I'll teach you. Amalei, so Rabbi Elazar pushed him off and he said, Izakoi, if I would have been worthy to learn it, I would have learned it from my teacher and not from you. Gemirta me Rabbi Yochanan Rabach, I would have learned it from Rabbi Yochanan, your teacher, and not from you. And therefore, don't consider myself worthy. I'm going to skip it. And the reason why he kept pushing off, and accordingly we see other Chacham also, because this is something, like I said, the Chacham are very worried about learning, even for themselves, learning this concept, that it might cause them to start humanizing the Eibishter, making it look like he has a form. So Chas v'Shalom. So here, if we turn into the Maharsh, the Daf Gimel with Aleph, so Maharsh is here in the back. So you mentioned that about the Baal Shem Tov, right? So first of all, the Baal Shem Tov was a Talmud of the Yoel Baal Shem, which was a Talmud of the Adam Baal Shem. Adam Baal Shem was one of the first that we know that taught Kabbalah to start teaching Kabbalah to students. So Adam, then Yoel. The Maharsh lived until about the year 16 something.
Just when it was starting.
That's when the Adam Baal Shem. He lived in the same time as the Adam Baal Shem. The Maharsh and the Adam Baal Shem lived in the same time. The Maharsh did not like the fact that they were learning Kabbalah that openly. I guess he was at that time. I guess he was against it. Later on, the Baal Shem Tov came out and started teaching Chassidus much more. I mean, as the time went on until the Alter Rebbe started teaching Chassidus more and more, that changed. But at that time, he lived 70 years before the Baal Shem Tov. He passed away 70 years before the Baal Shem Tov, the Maharsh. So at that time, he was not fond about people learning Kabbalah. So it says here in the Maharsh here, Ein to agamich ma'aseh makava abel lekashoy. So with that test Maharsh one second.
Yeah, it's a little.
Here's the Maharsh. There you go. To agamich ma'aseh makava abel lekashoy. Okay, the Gemarrah says, he asks me, come learn. He says, I'm not old enough. Says the Maharsh, we can't tshuva lo isna noshin shabadoil. We can't tshuva from here. You can answer. Reply to all the people which live in this generation, with the Maharsh's generation, the Adam Baal Shem in his generation. They are wasting their time in the Chachmas HaKabbalah, in Kabbalah stuff. Gam be'aldusam, even when they're young. So says the Maharsh, if it were important to learn, so then we would have seen Kabbalah in other places. If this Chachma Kabbalah has nothing to do with Maaseh Kabbalah, I don't understand why the Chachma Kabbalah is not mentioned anywhere. But it's not mentioned in Mishnah, it's not mentioned in Talmud, in the Gemarrah, not mentioned in Besefta, Mechilta, or Besifo, Besifrin, the Medrashim. It's not mentioned anywhere. So why do you waste your time learning Kabbalah? And it's apparent that this Chachma of Kabbalah is above Maaseh Makava. So it's rather that we should hide Kabbalah and rather than revealing it to everyone. Basically, the Maharsh was at that time against it, like you mentioned, like the Adam Baal Shem. Wow. Later on, as the time Gzeres Tachtat came about, and he needed a boost, that's how Baal Shem Tov came about. But eventually, with the Alter Rebbe, he started spreading Chassidus openly, publicly, Chassidus Chabad, that brought down Kabbalah to more understanding. Chacham ben Adas, it was a big kidduk, right? He ended up in jail. Okay, sagt die Gemarrah weiter. So basically,
you should make a machar. Yes, limchais. We had this. So you should have to make a machar.
I missed the end of it.
Yeah.
Beper we say Mate Maseches Shlimchas bi Yad Doshim Chacham Zuber Abend Gam Besfel. Yeah, this Mamish.
Unbelievable. Mamish at the time.
He lived the same time frame as Adam Baal Shem.
Wow.
So after he passed away,
It was just coming out.
After he passed away, and he what's it called? He obviously Chassidus started booming, started picking up speed. But he was right. At that time, he was right. It wasn't something that was meant for the public. Taking Chassidus and taking Chassidus, which is really explaining Kabbalah, but taking the actual Kabbalah and starting to applying it, the world wasn't ready for it yet.
Yeah, but the Maharsh says that it seems like it's even higher than
Ma'aseh Merkava, yeah. Well, because we reach Atzmus. Chassidus, how many times we reach Atzmus and then Tzov, and Tix talks about all these.
Al Rebbe himself said, "Why am I suffering?" Because they said that you took the crown, you put it into the road,
Basha,
you put Chassidus in the streets, in the gutters.
Yeah.
That's why they wasn't happy. Now that you started, you got to continue.
Okay, so take mal weiter. Rabbi Yosef, another Talmud Chacham, Rabbi Yosef, have a gomer Maaseh Merkava. He was learning Maaseh Merkava on his own. Salve de Pumbedisa, the elders of the city Pumbedisa, and the Maharsh explains a few names who they are. Have a tanu, there are few of them. Have a tanu, the Maaseh Meleshis. They were learning Maaseh Meleshis. Maaseh Meleshis, we mentioned in the beginning, was the Shemois, how they created the world, etc.
Also had limitations on.
Also limitations, how many people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not as deep because they're not talking about the Eivishter, it's already talking about the creation. Yeah. But it's Maaseh Merkava, they're both different Yisoidis, different secret things, different. So Rabbi Yosef would go Maaseh Merkava, he would learn Maaseh Merkava, and the elders of Pumbedisa, they would learn Maaseh Meleshis. Amulei said to Rabbi Yosef and said, Ligma ma Maaseh Merkava. Please teach us Maaseh Merkava. They obviously didn't mean teach us in public because we said he cannot teach only one-on-one. They meant one-on-one where a few people take each one-on-one and teach us Maaseh Merkava. Amalos, they told them, okay, Agmun le Maaseh Meleshis, first teach Maaseh Meleshis. Alright. Boss of the Agmun and taught him Maaseh Meleshis. They turned to him now. Okay, now we taught him Maaseh Meleshis. Keep you part of the deal. Amalei Ligmun ma Maaseh Merkava, teach us Maaseh Merkava. Amalahu, he told them no. Taninabu, we learned on this, and the Ram mentions this pasuk, Dvash v'chol of tachas l'shoinech, honey and milk should be under your tongue, which means devarim ametukim midvash v'chol, things that are even sweeter than honey and milk, you tachas l'shoinech should be under your tongue, not above your tongue. Don't talk about it. Abavalam says a different pasuk, why you shouldn't teach Maaseh Merkava. The Mama also mentions it, Kvasim lilvushecha, the pasuk says, that sheep are your garments, and he changes the sin to a shin. The things that are hidden, the hidden parts of the world, should be under your garments, not above your garments. These are hidden things, and if I'm not going to teach you. So it all turned to him like they wanted something. They told Rabbi Yosef, Taninenbu, we learned Maaseh Merkava, some of it, Ad vayomer alai ben Adam, till the beginning of the second Perek. Vayomer alai ben Adam is in Cheskel Aleph. Vayomer ben Adam is a Cheskel base Aleph. The first pasuk of Perek base. First pasuk of Perek base. We learned the whole first Perek. So the base turned to them and told them, Amalahu, you learned that? Hein Maaseh Merkava. That is Maaseh Merkava. What else do you want me to teach you? So the question really is, if they learned it, why did they come to him? If they learned it, what's the request? So basically the request was that we learned it, we only learned highlights, we only learned outlines, we didn't learn in depth. They wanted Rabbi Yosef now to teach them in depth. And Rabbi Yosef basically told them, you learned Maaseh Merkava. As much as I'm allowed to teach you, which is anyways outlines, you learned by yourself already. Now go by yourself, sit and try to dwell in it and try to understand it.
So Maaseh Merkava is what? It's in math. It's in like
the Cheskel. There's the Vua. We read it every Shavuos.
Read it, you won't understand it. I mean,
we can read. We can try to visualize certain things. There's obviously. Not to mention
also, when they say teach Maaseh Merkava, they're learning everything about peh. They're giving them the secret. It's not really.
But what is? It says that what does the pasuk say? Chashmal, something like a chashmal, which is like an electric something. Kamada eish, based on saviv mosnov. He has fire around him, and there's a oifan, and there's a keshes. We don't exactly understand what it is. It's all physical things that they were trying to explain what the Eibishter looks like, what surrounds the Eibishter, what the Eibishter is, and obviously the depth of it is we don't understand and we should not learn it.
So they were like seeing it. It's like they're learning how to be Nevi'im in a certain spectrum.
We'll see later on that some people tried learning and they actually got harmed.
Correct.
People got harmed if they weren't ready or if they learned it too young, even if they understood what it is. But yeah, so these things are supposed to be hidden. And if you understand a little bit, now sit and dwell until you understand yourself. So the Gemarrah is basically saying that Yosef told them, you reach the second Perek, that's Ma'aseh Makava. Terina Buhu, we learn somewhere else. Oh, sorry. Meisvei. We asked the Gemara was asking a question. Ad Hecha Ma'aseh Makava. Until where's Ma'aseh Makava? Rabbi Yoiman. Ad Vo'era Basra. Till the second pasuk Vo'era. Basically, two psukim before the end of the first chapter. Until there you can teach. Not including the last two psukim. Rabbi Yitzchak Yoiman. Ad Chashmal. You can teach the first two words. According to some opinions, you can teach the first two words of the second to the last pasuk. That's where you stop. Vo'ele, ke'en chashmal, done. That's where you have to stop. The rest of the second last pasuk and the last pasuk, Gemarrah Keshes Shiva Anon, this you cannot teach anymore. Question here is, Rabbi Yosef said that when they told him that they learned until the end of the Perek, including these last two psukim, Rabbi Yosef said, this is Ma'aseh Makava, so you learned it already. From this Mishnah we see that Ma'aseh Makava is until then. Until then. So Gemarrah has to explain. So after the Gemarrah, Ad Vo'era Megamrinan. Until Vo'era, according to one opinion, until Vo'era, this last two psukim, you can teach your student fully what goes on there. Megamrinan, Mekan Ve'elech, the last two psukim, Masrin al-Shapakim, you can only give the outlines. Ikad Amre, Ad Vo'era Masrin al-Shapakim, until Vo'era you only give outlines, Mekan Ve'elech. From here on, if it's a chacham and understands his own, he can learn. In loy don't teach him anything, not even outlines. Okay, so basically, it's not contradicting to what Yosef was saying. The whole thing is Ma'aseh Makava, but until the last two psukim, there's an opinion where you can teach it fully or only outlines. The last two psukim is what we're talking about. Yosef said, you reached that already. Anyways, I can only teach you outlines of the last two psukim. Because you reached that already, I don't have to teach you anymore. You sit on your own and learn and try to figure it out. There's an opinion that one of the Machlokes of Yitzchak says that he can include the words Vo'era ke'en chashmal. That's Sa'den chashmal. You can teach those three words. What it means. Do we even teach anything about the chashmal, which includes those two words? There was a youngster. The Darash b'chashmal. He started teaching about chashmal. V'nafkanu, and a fire came out, and the fire consumed him. The Hagosabach adds v'nafkanu mechashmal. The fire came out from chashmal and ate him. So for the Gemarrah, that's not. You can ask a question from a Yenuka, from a youngster. Shiny Yenuka, lav motazimne. A Yenuka, a youngster, it's not the right time. Or the Hagosabach says that lav oich the aradosh. It's not the regular thing that such a young guy should start teaching this thing. So you can ask a question from this story because this story is different. It was a youngster, he was too young, he should have not done it. So in general, yeah, you can teach chashmal. When you're too young, you're not experienced, that haven't learned enough yet, don't teach it. Amar Rav Yudam hat wieder gesagt. Badam, let's remember, we should remember favorably this person, Letoiv. Which person was that? Chanani ben Chizkiya Shemoy. Chanani ben Chizkiya was his name. If were it not for him, Nigna Sefer Cheskel, the entire Sefer Cheskel would have been hidden. At the end of Cheskel, there are certain psukim that seem contradictory to the title. One of the things that's mentioned in there, it says that Kohanim should not eat nevelos and teifas. It says that the Kohanim should not eat nevelos and teifas, which is mashma. What couldn't you learn from here? That Yidden could eat. And other things, it says over there that you have to bring a korban on the 7th day of Nisan. There's no one in the Torah that's mentioned that on the 7th day of Nisan bring a korban. So amongst the things, the Gemaras in different places explain what those things mean. Explaining about the Kohanim thing is because the Kohanim are allowed to do melika, they're allowed to slice off the head of the bird in the Beis Hamikdash as a korban. But if you do the same thing to a bird outside of Beis Hamikdash, that bird will be considered nevela because you just killed it without shechting. So in order them not to, so Cheskel told them that in order for you not to make that mistake, I'm telling you that nevelas and teifas is lo yechel kahanim. I'm telling the kahanim that these things that you're allowed to eat in the Beis Hamikdash, make sure you don't eat it outside. And all the other things are also explained. But before these explanations came about, when you looked at the Sefer Cheskel at the end at face value, it contradicted Torah in many places. So the Chachamim had so much power that even though Cheskel was a Navi, and it says in the Torah that you have to listen to the Navi, they had enough power to hide the Sefer Cheskel. Chanan ben Chizkiah saved him. Why? So what did Chanan ben Chizkiah do? They brought up a huge amount of oil for eating, for lighting, for having candlelight. V'yoshev aliyah, and he sat up in the attic. V'dosha, and he explained every contradiction that Cheskel had between the Cheskel and the Torah. And that's how we found out all the explanations of what the Cheskel meant at the end. There was a story with a young kid. In his teacher's house, he found the Sefer Cheskel. He read it. He understood what Chashmal means. A fire came out of Chashmal and burned him. Or Bikshu, again, the Chacham wanted to hide because it's a dangerous Sefer. Or Bikshu Ligna Sefer Cheskel, and they wanted to hide Sefer Cheskel. And again, the Chanan ben Chizkiah saved the Sefer Cheskel. Amalem, Chanan ben Chizkiah turned to them and said, Im ze Chacham, HaKoil Chacham Hem. Just because this child is very smart and was able to understand, do you think everyone else is such a Chacham? Can't hide the Sefer just because one kid understood what it means. You can't hide the Sefer from everyone else. And that's why the Sefer stayed around again. What exactly is Chashmal? Not that we say we shouldn't learn Chashmal. What is Chashmal? My Chashmal. So the Gemara is not going to tell exactly what it is, but it's one is going to tell what are the words made out of. Alma Avyuda. Two ways we can look at the word. One of them is Chayos Eish Memalelois. Chayos is going to the Malachim. Eish Memalelois, when they speak, fire comes out of their mouth. Of the Kaviyachov, they have mouths. Fire comes out. So Chashmal is Chayos Eish Memalelois. Chashmal. Take a Ches from Chayos, the Shin from Eish, and the Mem Lamed from Malez. The Masnisaton and different advice we learned that Chashmal comes in two words. Chash and Mal. Chash is quiet, Mal is speaking. Itim Choshe, sometimes they are quiet. V'itim Mal, sometimes they speak. V'shosha di b'yotzim b'yakadosh baruch. When the Eibush is speaking, Chosh is they're quiet. Or v'shosha eina di b'yotzim b'yakadosh baruch. When the Eibush is not speaking, the Mal is, that's when they talk, when they hum or say something. Okay, the pasuk in Cheskel goes further and says, V'hachayois, and these malachim, Lotze v'shuv, they go back and forth, here and about. They run. Nashi says, second Nashi on the top, Lotze v'shuv, what does that exactly mean? Moitzias roishon mitachas halakia, they stick their heads out under the halakia. Hanot l'mayla, they stick them basically, their heads out of the lakia that's l'mayla Hashem, that's higher than their head. And they basically stick and they basically go where the Eibush is. And they quickly, swiftly pull their head back because of the fear of the Shechina, and they do it very quickly. It's like running back and forth of a flame that comes out from a lightning. You see a lightning, you see it goes there, and if you really do it in slow motion, you see the lightning going and returning. A lightning goes and then returns. So the same thing is also that swiftness is what the Malachim were experiencing.
It's funny because Bezek today is the Israeli telephone company and Chashmal is electric. So if you told someone 1,000 years ago to explain electric, they wouldn't be able to explain it. Today every kid knows what a phone is and what electric is.
So in English, I actually looked up in English the type Chashmal electrum, which is a kind of material which is more expensive than gold.
Right.
Has that same thing also,
Conductive, conducive.
Yeah, something like. But Chashmal, the idea of Chashmal was that fire, Chashmal, electricity came about when they touched certain things and a spark came out. That was the Chashmal. Says the Gemarrah weiter. Mayot v'shuv, v'chayz rotz v'shuv, k'marei abozok, like lightning. Mayot v'shuv, the Gemarrah says, what does rotz v'shuv exactly mean? It's like fire flames when you have a furnace and the fire is bigger than the furnace, the fire goes out and it goes in, goes out and it goes in. My Kemar was like one of them was like lightning. when they would want to purify gold, they had a certain vessel that had holes, and they put on top of the fire, and they would bang the gold, and then you would see like sparks coming out. The fire that is going out, that's like the sparks. So basically, the head of the Rashi, as Rashi explains, their heads were going in and out of the lakia so fast because of the fear of the Eibishter. Then the Cheskel sees weiter in his vision and sees V'eila, and I saw Ruach saw Ba'am and Atzofen. A stormy wind comes from the north. A non-godel, a huge cloud. Ve'esh mislakachas, and a fire is in the cloud. V'noigal esalvin, is a certain light around this the Eibishter. Umitoichel, and from within, ke'ena chashmal metoichel, is like chashmal, electricity or something inside the fire. So the pasuk says that the wind was coming from Tzaf, from the north. What? That the Eibishter basically. The Eibishter was inside this Luchsa'ah. What was the Eibishter doing there? Leichen Azal. Where did he go to come back? Why did he go north? What's north of Eretz Yisrael? Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, which is basically the whole Bavel. The Eibishter went. The Eibishter went to Kasdim, to the Bavel. Why? Because the Gemarrah says, "Leichen Azal Amar Yudah Marav Sholach Lichboich Es Kol Ha'olam Kulei Tachas Nebuchadnezzar." The Eibishter went to put the entire world under the rule of Nebuchadnezzar. Why? Why did Nebuchadnezzar have to be such a mighty ruler? The world should not say that Nebuchadnezzar was anyways destined to come into the Beis Hamikdash and destroy the Beis Hamikdash. The Eibush didn't want that the world should say that the Yidden were defeated by a lowly nation. At that time, Nebuchadnezzar and his nation were lowly. They were Kasdim. They were a lowly nation. So the Eibush went and made them very powerful. So when they came, it was like the pasuk says, "V'alevonin be'adid lipoil." The Levonin, which the Beis Hamikdash had to be destroyed by someone very mighty. About this, the Eibishter said, basically, I went and I did a service to Nebuchadnezzar. The Eibishter himself went to serve Nebuchadnezzar, the entire world, on a silver platter. Who caused me that I should be a servant to someone that serves the idols? The Avedas of the Eden, that's what caused me. Okay,
one second. They made him strong, so they said they Yidden lost to somebody strong and not somebody weak.
Correct.
It should be the other way around. They look how the Yidden have fallen so low that they fell to somebody weak.
No, the Eibishter didn't want.
It makes it worse because it makes it sound like the Eibishter couldn't do. If it was weak, then the Eibishter could have.
So it's a very good question. I think the answer to that is also you find by the stoning by Skila, that you're supposed to only do 2 floors. If you want to make sure that a guy dies, do 20 floors, because there's a certain nachmanas. Choose a pleasant death. Not
why is it pleasant if they should have made him strong? So it should look.
So
the
because
why they lost because he was too strong for them.
The Yidden retained some pride. The Eibush didn't want to totally wipe out Yidden. Not only this, also the morale. The Yidden retained some wipe. The Yidden said that has a chaim. We made Avedas, and someone mighty overcame us.
It's for the Yidden, no.
Yeah. Says the Gemarrah weiter. Says the Gemarrah weiter. Vo'ele achayois. I saw that these malachim, the chayois. What did I see? Eifan echot, kind of a wheel, ba'aretz, is on the land, on the earth. Eitz lachayis, by the malachim. So what's pshat? Amar Abelazar malach echot shu oimed ba'aretz. There was a certain malach that stands his feet on the ground. V'rosh magia etz lachayis, but his head reaches so high by the malachim that are called chayis. B'mas nisantana, in a Vaisa we learned, Sandalfoin shmoi, his name is Sandalfoin. And what's so special about Sandalfoin? Hagavoya v'gavoy mechaveiroi. He's taller than his contemporaries, the other malachim. Mahalech chomish me'es shana, 500 years walk. V'oimid achoyer ha'mekova, and he stands behind him at the kova, behind the Eibishter, the koishek son, the koinoi, and he weaves crowns for the Eibishter. What are these crowns made out of? says the Tosfos, third Tosfos on top, the Kodesh Ksal and the Koinoi, mit filoson shel tzadikim oisatodas. With the tefillos of tzadikim, he makes crowns to the Eibishter. That's why the pasuk says that his feet are on the ground, in order for him to transfer the tefillos from down here back to the Eibishter. He had to be on the ground, but at the same time reach all the way up high in Shemayim behind the Merkava. Fedi Gemarrah Kasha. Eini, it says in Echeskel, but Hashem Mimkoimoi, that the Eibishter should be blessed from where? Mimkoimoi, from his place, wherever the Eibishter dwells. We don't know the Eibishter's dwelling place. If we would have known the Eibishter's dwelling place, then the Cheskel would have written Baruch Hashem, Baruch Kvoid Hashem, wherever his place is. Mimkoimoi means we don't know his place. Mechlal, the Mimkoimoi leka the other way. No one knows where his place is. How can he say that this Malach stands behind the Merkava and puts a crown on the Eibishter? After the Gemarrah, the Omar Shem Atago, he says the Eibishter's name, one of the names of the Eibishter, upon the crown that he creates. The Ozal v'Yosef Elation, then the crown goes and sits on top of the head. Now, connecting what you said before, that the Alter Rebbe was punished when he took the crown jewels. This is what we're talking about, maybe. She said before that the whole thing, the Maharsh explains that Kabbalah was frowned upon, because the Alter Rebbe actually took this whole Ma'aseh Merkava, like the Maharsh says, that Kabbalah is higher than Ma'aseh Merkava. So maybe this is what we're talking about. The complaint that the Malachim had to the Alter Rebbe, they had in Shemayim against the Alter Rebbe, that he took Kabbalah, which is higher than Ma'aseh Merkava, the crown of the Eibishter, and you're spreading it out. Rava said, Kol Shirod, finish with this, Kol Shirod Yecheskel or Yeshaya, Yecheskel Navi saw exact same vision as Yeshaya Navi. But we don't see that Yeshaya wrote a whole chapter of what he saw. Lemay Yecheskel, what is Yecheskel likened to? Leben Kfar, to a village boy. Shirod is a melech that saw the king, and he gets excited. And the Maharsh explains, it's not Stam. Tosfos says, Tosfos says that a village boy, if you come back and tell them, I saw this, bring me proof, show me. So you had to write it out for them. As it says, then Kvar Shawaz HaMelech, Shetzorech Lahavi, says the fourth Tosfos, Shetzorech Lahavi Simonim Lacherim. Kodim Shaminu, he had to bring certain signs to the other ones, to the people in his village, that they should trust and believe him that he saw the king. Okay. So basically, Cheskel was a village boy. He wasn't someone that was used to seeing a king and in its glory. So therefore, he wrote about it. Lamai Shaidoim Leben Klach, the city boy that sees the kings and rulers often. Shoas HaMelech, he's the one that saw the king. The Shai was one that was used to seeing royalty, and therefore, when he saw the vision, that same vision that Cheskel saw, for him he didn't write about it. It wasn't so exciting for him.